Hey everyone, I'm Rhonda and I'm here with Cody today. Cody, what are some of the common obstacles or questions that you get from people that have just received their results from the Working Genius?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a few. And it's really important. I think that's one of the critical steps is like, are you identified properly into your right genius? So the most common problem as people take the assessment and receive the results is this. More often than not, and it doesn't happen that often, but when there is a discrepancy, is this really fit me? More often than not, it's because the person who took the assessment filled it out with the idea that I need to answer these questions based on what my role is in my job versus what gives me fulfillment and joy. So if a person receives their results and they say, I don't feel like this fits me, my first question is, hey, as you answered these questions, did you answer them in a way that talked about what brought you joy, fulfillment, energy? Or did you say, hey, here's my role at work, and this is kind of what I have to do? And 9 out of 10 times, they're, oh yeah, if I had answered differently, I would have answered this way based on what fills me up, what brings me energy. So it's really critical to get a person's genius right. I mean, it's liberating when you know what your genius is, and it can be a little limiting if it doesn't quite fit. So don't be afraid to, after you get your results, to read the back of the report, understand more about the geniuses. Even if you have to change a letter or two because it fits you more, that is the liberating part, to know, okay, now I know what these two are. I can start to organize my life, my work, and my world a little bit around my geniuses more. So that's most common problem number one. One of the ways to solve that is just really help people identify the difference between capability and fulfillment. The other thing is, it's not really about how good you are at something as much as it is how you're fulfilled by it. We all actually are generally pretty good at our working competencies too. So we can be, pretty gifted at galvanizing, even if that's not our genius. In fact, I've had a person email me after they took their assessment and say, hey, your assessment said I didn't have tenacity, but I went to med school. So how is that possible? And I said, well, did you enjoy it? And she said, oh man, it was excruciating for me. Well, there are people out there with tenacity that get joy and energy and fulfillment from going through tasks and checking things off and turning in reports and all of that thing. So the goal is to get it right. And once you've established that, you can move into how do we then use that in your life.
So how would one validate their results? If the report comes back and it's not quite what they're thinking, how would they validate that?
Well, I like to just ask either or questions in some cases. Like the first place I would start is say, hey, is there one that you got right that you're pretty confident about? Like, is there more than one variable? Or are we kind of talking about two here? So generally people will say, hey, I got discernment. I'm pretty sure that's in my top. So I'm really wrestling between these other two. So let's say it's wonder or invention, for example. I might say, hey, what would give you more energy and joy if you got to sit in a room by yourself and sort of ponder about the bigger picture of things? Like, would you love to take some time away, think about the environment, really start to identify some opportunities for greater potential? Or if it's discernment, for example, I'll say, would you like to sit in a room and have people bring ideas to you and evaluate them, help them refine them? And generally, if you do an either or, after a couple of those questions, people are like, oh, okay, so that's pretty clear to me. I actually have more wonder than I do discernment, or I enjoy that process more than I do the other. So that's a great way to help break ties as you're navigating that with people, is just either or questions, sort of know what we know and then try to figure out the ones that have a little question about.
What would you say to the individual who maybe answered their questions based on what they feel that their organization values, more so than like how they're actually wired?
Yeah, that you're kind of hitting on two other problems that occur. Is like someone might get their results and say, I don't really like my results. Like I was hoping that I had more invention, or people have said I'm an idea person before. It's really not about what you think. It's the real value in this is knowing who you are, because it's so liberating to go, oh my gosh, this is what brings me joy and energy. Not to necessarily try to put a camouflage on and fit into a role that that doesn't bring you joy and energy. So that can happen both personally, someone saying, I wish I had more tenacity, for example. I have none. I value that. I just am bad at it, Or the alternative can happen. And this can be a little dicey for people at times, where an organization or a leader might actually inadvertently or subconsciously or consciously value some of these more than others. And unless the leader and the team is on the same page to say all 6 of these are required, we can celebrate all of them. People slide in really unique ways that help us get things done. If there's a person in an environment where, say, the leader really values galvanizing and you don't have it, I would say that's more of an opportunity to understand, is there an opportunity for me to slide into the role that I am uniquely gifted to do and that I get joy and fulfillment from? Otherwise, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to say, maybe there's another job, another role, another organization that would allow me to live more into my geniuses, that would celebrate them more. So that can be a little tricky to navigate. If you're in a role or an organization that doesn't value what you're bringing to the table, that's when you might start asking questions like, are there ways that we can adjust my role? If not, maybe there are other opportunities for me.